Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Reimagining Individual Giving During and Beyond COVID-19. For those of you who are returning Candid webinar participants, a warm welcome back. And to those of you who are here for the first time, I'm so glad that you're joining us today. My name is Elizabeth Cebada, and I'm a program specialist for Candid based in our New York Learning Center. I'll be supporting today's webinar behind the scenes along with my colleague Catalina Spinel by administering polls, responding to questions, and posing those during our brief Q&A at the end. For a combined 90 years, Foundation Center and GuideStar each helped change the world by giving people the information they needed to do good. In February 2019, the two organizations joined forces to become Candid. Every year, millions of nonprofits spend trillions of dollars around the world. Candid finds out where that money comes from, where it goes, and why it matters. We believe that everyone should have the facts. The greatest service we can provide is to be upfront about all that we know. We envision a social sector capable of tackling the critical challenges and opportunities of our time. Through research, collaboration, and training, Candid connects people who want to change the world with the resources they need to do it. And just in case you missed it, Grant Space is now Candid Learning. Candid Learning is your all-in-one destination for all of Candid's live and on-demand trainings, webinars, and other resources designed to improve your fundraising, overall sustainability, grant making, and transparency. You can keep up to date with all of our learning resources by subscribing to our newsletter. We also want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for being part of Candid's learning community. We recognize that this is a challenging time for many of you, and as such, Candid has shifted its key learning opportunities to a virtual format. You can learn more about them through the link on the screen. We've also invested in providing the social sector with the resources it needs to make informed decisions about today's most pressing issues. We will be sharing links for our resources on COVID-19, as well as the racial equity movements taking place across the sector. I'd now like to introduce our panel for today. We certainly do have a powerhouse lineup. So joining us today, we have Lisa Baxter, Director of Major Gifts at the MLK Community Health Foundation. Valeda Fullwood, the Principal Architect of the Soul of Philanthropy. Kristen Romaine, Director of Candid Philanthropy at VertueLab, as well as Eliana Turin and Phyllis Harris from the LGBTQ Community Center of Greater Cleveland. Thank you so much for joining today's conversation. I'll now turn things over to my colleague, Krista Berry Ortega, who will be our moderator for today's session. Krista, take it away.
All right, we are so excited to have this amazing panel today to talk about individual giving. Really where this came from is we've had so many questions over the last few months from folks asking, do we continue to ask, and how do we kind of reimagine how we're doing individual giving when we're so used to doing kind of face-to-face, stewardship and bringing people into the office, and now we're in this virtual environment. So a little bit of context, Giving USA said that in 2019, Americans gave $449.6 billion to charity. And of that, 69% was from individuals. So what we're talking about is over $309 billion that individuals, just like all of us, have given to nonprofits around the country. And we know that that has increased very much so, especially since 2018, and has grown over the last 4 or 5 years. So we're all kind of like, okay, how is this going to change this year? And what does that mean? So Lisa, in light of the global pandemic that we've all been in over the last few months, can you talk to us a little bit about what the MLK Foundation is doing and how you have reimagined individual giving this year?
Absolutely, yes. And again, my name is Lisa Baxter. I'm the Director of Major Gifts for MLK Community Health Foundation for the Martin Luther King Community Hospital in South LA. And I'm so happy to be here. So what's working? I think it's our commitment to our mission. That is always first and foremost. You know, we provide compassionate, collaborative, quality care to improve the health of the community. And that has been something that we have been committed to in every aspect. During COVID, we found opportunity in crisis. And I think that was the most important thing, is like, how do we pivot? How do we make sure that we are remaining adaptive and flexible in this time? We did not stop fundraising. We responded to the emergent need of our patients and hospital with the launch of our emergency fund. And really, it was due to the preparation, having the right infrastructure, and being innovative, not just in technology, but being innovative in the way that we leveraged the resources that we had, and that came from the support of the community. So these are things really that did not just happen or come about because of COVID. This started back when we first opened up 5 years ago. And this has been our story. We've really helped to change the narrative that once was, you know, and if anyone does know our story, it started back in 1965 during the Watts riots, and the hospital was really the answer to that. And so this is nothing that is new to us. We continue to remain diligent and agile as we, you know, determine how best we can, you know, fulfill the needs of our patients and our community. And I think the most beautiful thing, as you'll see on the graphic, is that we were able to raise over $3 million through our emergency fund. That was something that, you know, I don't know if the word is expect. For me, I kind of get emotional when I think about it. I just never seen the community rally around us in this way. It was such a profound time to just see everyone step up for us. We were able to acquire 207 new donors across the country. We secured over $300,000 in in-kind donations. We had over 40,000 meals that were donated to our front lines. And, you know, so our frontliners got fed basically every day out the kindness and generosity of our supporters, our donors, our friends in the community. There was over 19,000 products that were distributed to our frontliners, and that it was anything from flowers to tennis shoes to protein shakes to skincare. I mean, they really showed up. And so because of the foundation that was set, you know, from the time we opened, you know, I think it really helped to create that space where our major funders were coming to us and saying, what do you need? And so that's why I don't feel that this was there was any magic or rocket science to it. It was because of all of the groundwork that was laid, you know, and it started from the relationship that our CEO and our foundation president has moved into our executive leadership, to our employees, to our vendors, to our donors. I mean, everyone is, you know, here working collaboratively again to fulfill this mission. We did send out some targeted videos, thank you videos from our frontliners. We also had a Mother's Day video that featured some of our frontliners, and that was a beautiful, it was a beautiful depiction of the strength of a mother, you know, because, you know, when you think about nurses, you know, these are the folks that are really the ones that provide that care during a time when maybe some of you know, the family members of our patients can't be there. So not only are they taking care of our patients, but they also have to go home and take care of their families. And so the fact that they were risking their lives to save our community members, you know, that's something that I really do feel is a powerful images and powerful things that have come out of COVID. Also, you know, our in-kind pipeline, that was something that was new to MLK. We never had any mechanism or process for in-kind donations, and I was asked to, you know, switch hats and oversee the intake of that, whether it was PPE or donations to our frontliners. And it was just, it was one where I thought I would have to do a lot of outreach, and I really didn't. It was more about management. And to say that I was like just in awe every time someone reached out to me. I mean, literally, I'm like working, you know, from like, you know, early in the morning to almost midnight, you know, just you know, trying to manage all of these acts of kindness. And it was really, you know, a beautiful thing, and still a beautiful thing. It hasn't stopped. And so, you know, and even through that, there's an opportunity there, because now we're able to hopefully convert these in-kind donors into supporters of the hospital. We did receive some media coverage that I thought also helped to, you know, shine a light on us a little bit more, in the New York Times and LA Times, and also our CEO. You know, she has been, you know, asked by numerous outlets to either, you know, help to be there, to be interviewed, or to, you know, speak at a town hall. So we definitely have our eyes on us, and we really have turned into a national model for other hospitals. And I think for us, our recognition page was really unique, or the way that we were thanking our donors. And you know, we'll share that link with you in the chat box. It was just a great mix of pictures and graphics, just really thanking all of the people that came together and rallied around us. And it's so important the way that you say thank you, but to be able to say thank you in a very innovative and creative way. Hats off to our team for, you know, really being intentional about that. And that also helped put us on the map for our employee giving program, MLK Gives. And that actually ended a couple weeks ago. And through that, we had 630 donors. We raised over $173,000. And that is so profound, because when you think about philanthropy, you know, and also when you talk about being a fundraiser, you know, you sometimes don't think about yourself as a donor, but when you think about building a culture of philanthropy, all of those elements have to intersect. And so when you have your staff truly believe in what you do and really be the ones to, you know, push that forward, that is a beautiful thing. And actually our employee giving program started because it was a request of one of our employees. So we've built, so this foundation has already been built, and everybody that is a part of it is committed to liberating this community, because that's really how I look at what I do. You know, not only do I lead with compassion, but I help to build communities of people that are invested in the liberation of others. And I think that's so important, what we have been able to do. And I think overall, you know, as we fulfill the mission for this community, it's not just about what they need, but what they deserve. They deserve so much. And I'm just so thankful to be a part of a group, a network of people that want to be able to provide those things to our community.
Wow, Lisa, that's so exciting to hear that it was an inclusive campaign, that you're including volunteers and employees and folks from the community that know this program and the benefits, and that you were so successful in that as well. Congratulations. I want to turn it over to Valeda, because when you were talking, I was like, oh my God, it's Black Philanthropy Month, Valeda. And I don't know if you all know that, but follow the hashtag. And Valeda, please share a little bit more. You've had a busy month, so thank you for being here. Share a little bit more about the Soul of Philanthropy and the work you're doing in your community this month and through the last few months.
Yes, thanks, Krista. I'm representing the Soul of Philanthropy, which is an exhibition that I helped create. And I also am one of the organizers of Black Philanthropy Month. And if you didn't know, August is Black Philanthropy Month, and it's a global celebration of African descent giving in all its forms. And so it's an opportunity for nonprofits and foundations and just the general community to lift up and celebrate Black donors and supporters, and also a time to attract resources to Black-led organizations and nonprofits in your community. I'm also here as a member of a collective giving group, a social justice focused giving circle called New Generation of African American Philanthropists. And in fact, my involvement as an individual donor choosing to be a part of a collective giving group gave birth to the Soul of Philanthropy, my exhibition, and then also my involvement with Black Philanthropy Month. One of the things I will share from the perspective of our collective giving group, we are a group of individual donors who've come together, pool our collective resources, and also organize other donors to become more informed about community issues, about vehicles of philanthropy, and around inequities that exist, because racial justice and funding equity are two main focuses of our work. As part of a circle, with this year in particular, while it's been challenging in so many ways, at the same time, because of our focus, we've been ready. I mean, I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there is some Southern Black wit that says you got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And so I feel that in our 14-year history of our giving circle, we've been focused on many of the issues that have been exposed during the coronavirus pandemic, and then also during protests and calls for racial justice. So we've been organizing and educating ourselves about issues that we feel we're well positioned to help lead change and address many of these issues in Charlotte, and are learning some things that we can share with other communities as well. One of the things we're most proud of in this moment is, because it's Black Philanthropy Month, we organized a community-wide celebration of Black giving. We call it hashtag BPM 2020 CLT. And our giving circle partnered with several other organizations in our community, Black-led organizations, and then also an organization that helps promote and lift up and attract resources for nonprofits. And we planned for nearly a year, and not knowing we would face this moment where it's even more critical than ever to bring a spotlight to stories from nonprofits and to connect them to resources, vital resources. And we're in the midst of it now. We've had amazing success in terms of interest and promotion. Around 40 businesses and corporations, our professional sports teams, and our foundations have come together as promotional partners and are lifting up the stories of Black-led nonprofits in Charlotte and encouraging the community to give Black. In fact, this Friday, we have a day-long campaign that we refer to as CLT Gives Black. And it's a concerted effort to bring attention and vital resources to underfunded, under-resourced, Black-led nonprofits in Charlotte.
Wow. Melinda, thank you. I'm so excited, and you're getting me excited because not only do you introduce yourself as a fundraiser and someone in this community, but I love that you introduce yourself as a donor as well. And when we were planning this, that was an important part of what we wanted to share with all of you, is if you put yourself in the donor shoes and you don't think that the donor is someone else, you can really start reimagining who else might want to be involved. And so you made me want to give. So I hope we put that link in somewhere here, because I'm a donor too, and I want to give. Amazing. I think another story that I want to share right now is Kristen's. Kristen, you know, obviously we want to put ourselves in the donor shoes, but sometimes they are very different from us. And how do we steward some major donors? And how have you reimagined your work in this space around being virtual and needing to meet your goals?
Thank you, Krista. So I'm the director of Candid Philanthropy at VertueLab, and VertueLab is a nonprofit that is fighting the climate crisis by providing holistic support for entrepreneurs and startups that are creating climate change innovations. So most of our donors are actually usually coming from an impact investing lens. So they may not have had as much exposure to philanthropy, but we had launched a fund. We're creating a $5 million investment fund for early stage startups. And we had launched the fund in late 2019. So when COVID happened, it was really a challenge. And I had a few really large asks that were already out. And one of them, about 48 hours before I was supposed to be on a call with the individuals, I spoke with a friend of mine who's a CSR person, and she said, you should really make sure that you update your Candid profile and make sure that you're a platinum level, because all the corporate CSRs are using that to determine how they're giving money out, because they're being more scrutinized as far as where money is going. So literally 48 hours before I'm having this call with the individual, I decide, you know, we're all so busy in our days, but I decided to take the time out. And I think at the time we were maybe a bronze or silver level. And I just decided, okay, I'm going to do everything I need to do to try to get us to platinum levels, so we can really showcase the organization well. Brought in a couple other team members that do some of our impact reporting, and we were able to get it updated. And when I got on the call with these donors, we had asked them for $250,000 at the end of 2019. And in the course of our conversation and talking about what our plans were and how we were going to leverage that funding from them, even given the COVID situation, I happened to mention that we were a Platinum GuideStar organization. And they already knew that. They had already done their research, and he said that that was actually why he wanted to have a call with me, because they wanted to double their gift. So they gave us $250,000 for this year and $250,000 for next year. And part of it was to help support us and leverage some of those opportunities. So I know that makes me sound like a candid influencer. This was not a paid message.
It wasn't.
But it was one of those things. I think some of these things as fundraisers, we put them off because we have so many things to do and we want to focus on building the relationships. But I think some of these things right now, like infrastructure and making sure that our online presence of the organization is really important, because donors want to spend their money wisely because they know there is so much need. And so it's really important that we showcase ourselves and our missions as best as possible.
So exciting, Kristen. And it's true. Oftentimes we hear this, that you don't know that they're already researching you before you even have contact, especially if we're adding new prospects into our pipelines. They've most likely done a little bit of research before they start even interacting with us. So I appreciate that. And in this virtual space where we are stewarding folks online and communicating with folks online, I think our online presence is even more important than it ever was. Phyllis and Eliana, we know that you guys have had a really exciting year too, which is, this is giving me chills because there's so much hope on this panel in such a dark year in a lot of ways. Can you share a little bit about how it's going in your neck of the woods in Cleveland this year and some of your successes?
Sure, I'm going to open it up and then I'm going to turn it over to Ellie to share more. But I wanted to say that there's so much that resonated from each of the panelists who already spoke in terms of how we, have been able to be successful during this time that's been so challenging. So Phyllis Harris, I'm the Executive Director of the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland. Here in Cleveland, Ohio, you see that there are two of us from this panel. That is because I have I'm going to take us back to what it takes to get some of this work done, and that is having people who understand giving, people who understand that people give to folks who they don't like to give to sinking ships. They like to know that what they're giving to, that you're going to do with the money what you say you're going to live into your mission. But one of the things that has to also happen is that you have to have the infrastructure. Somebody talked about having the infrastructure to be able to get this work done. And each of you, in some ways, I feel like really represented, different identities around being about civil rights and social change, and being about Black philanthropy, and being about, taking something good around, looking at individuals, through VertueLab and lifting them up. Like everybody has a story that you can tell that is compelling, that made me want to give to each of you. And we have stories, as someone who lives at the intersection of being Black and a woman, and being an out lesbian. And if you look at my power twin over here, Eliana, around her identities, one of the great things that happened is that we realized that we had potential. And Ellie is a former LGBT Community Center board member. And in a meeting, Ellie, this is why I'm one of the smartest people in this now. In the board meeting, we were discussing some of the challenges that we were faced with financially, but we also, both from our seats, understood fundraising and nonprofit management, and we understood that we had an opportunity with our identities, with not letting go of the perspectives that we could bring, but then also that, you know, people give to people, right? And there are so many individuals who have been left out and untapped. We absolutely need to acknowledge and focus on those who stereotypically are seen to give, but we absolutely are, you know, are full of appreciation and should show much grace to established givers, donors, and but we absolutely don't want to leave folks out. And I think we bring a unique perspective. I think we were able to, you know, see the good in the opportunity and run with it. And so we're in a meeting and we're talking about our challenges, and Eliana explains, you know, to my board leadership the perspective of looking at our opportunity and our finances and how that comes together and what's needed. And after she made her appeal, you know, I was very excited because I felt like I was like, you know, trying to explain in a way to board leadership who I know were leaders and, you know, experts in, you know, what they know, there with full heart around wanting to be connected to a sustainable organization and for us to be able to thrive. And after she appealed to them and I knew that she got it, I asked her, I let her know that I had an opening for a director of development, and I asked her if she would be interested in the position. So what we were able to do is, you know, really influence the leadership in a way that, you know, she felt in her heart to come on to our staff to do this work together. And so we got double trouble here around wanting to be innovative, being able to understand that if we build capacity, we can get this done, and building credibility and, you know, just leading together, you know, having power with as we approach, you know, our donors, as we think about how we make write our appeals. And it's not just the two of us. So what I'm going for is like diversity and thinking around who gives and who they might give to and what their inclination is and what their capacity is, and, you know, how to get to pull them in and to build those types of relationships. So it's me, it's Eliana, it's Nat Graves, who's our donor database manager, who handles our relationships with corporate sponsors. It's Gomar Firasta, who is our grant writer. So we're bringing all these perspectives together, and we're thinking about the people that we serve, both those who come here for services and those who want to give to support an organization like ours that really supports people who have marginalized identities. So it has enabled us to do some great work in the last, I would say, well, you came on, Ellie, in December.
Mm-hmm.
So December 19, and along with Lauren Welch, who is our communications, marketing communications manager, we have the infrastructure to be innovative, to tap into those donors who've given, you know, $35 a month for 3 years, to remember to thank them, you know, and to ask for more. And, you know, and not be shy about that, because we know they care, because they've been giving already. So I'm going to stop there because I want Ellie to bring her voice into the conversation, and then we'll tell you more.
So by the time Phyllis brought me on, so this was, oh my goodness, 8 months ago, I can't believe it. The LGBT Center had already been growing, it's just exponentially, because Phyllis had just landed a series of transformational gifts from an anonymous donor who allowed us to build this incredible building. Our organization had previously been in a basement across the street with like really bad lighting and old furniture, and now we have this like state-of-the-art building and a facility, and we onboarded a whole team of new personnel, and we've been growing very quickly. And it was almost the conversation like, are we growing too quickly? Do we need to slow it down, right? You know, because with growth comes expenses and complications and all those things. But Phyllis and I were always kind of like of a shared spirit, and we were kind of like, no, like this is our time to do this. So we put together a whole fundraising plan. This is like January, February timeframe, and it was all about the building, and we're going to rent the space, and we have marriage equality, so we're going to do weddings and like all these things, right? And then COVID-19 happened, and we had to close the physical space, and like the whole development plan had to be reworked. And our organization, we really had to make a choice between what are we going to do? Are we going to like batten down the hatches? Are we going to lay people off? I mean, and the thing is, like, every numbers-based answer said, just close it down. Just, that's the easiest thing with the math, right? But you don't fundraise with math. You fundraise with your spirit and your heart. And so what Phyllis and I did is that we assembled an advisory group of we called it our brain trust, right? And it was the smartest fundraisers in town. And we did a whole evaluation of like, what if we cut like X number of dollars from our budget? And what we realized was we couldn't, because any significant reduction in our staff would reduce our programs, and our programs were needed more than ever, because we were doing like telehealth, and we were doing like virtual programs and support groups and street outreach and delivering food and medication and safe sex kits and all these things that were needed more than ever. So we ultimately decided, you know what, we're just going to grow it anyway. So we put together a whole new development plan based around grants and all these different things, but individual giving was a core part of it. And we devised a really sophisticated individual giving campaign that included a major donor packet that we sent to all of our major donors who had ever given us like $1,000 or more. It's a really beautiful packet that Lauren, our communications manager, put together. It just outlined everything we were doing with COVID-19. We sent that out. Phyllis started talking to all the major donors. We then sent out a direct mail piece that was like a bifold. That was like a summarized version of the major donor packet. We sent that to all of our donors. And then because Give Out Day, which is kind of like the LGBTQ Giving Tuesday, it got moved to June 30th, which coincided with Pride Month. And we were like, okay, let's make it all coincide with that. So we did a whole big, giant electronic crowdfunding thing. And not only did we like blast that out on social media and everything, but we had been building out these relationships with all these like corporate ERG group managers. So we communicated to them and we said like, here's our message. Can you send this to all of your networks? So they sent it all out to their networks. And then even a company, Highland Software, they opened up a whole employee giving campaign that they then matched. So when it was all done, we had a 73% increase in major gifts. We had a 207% direct mail donation increase. We had a 471% increase in social media donations. And get ready for this, we had a 1,743% increase in our website and email donations. So it was just from the heart. Yeah, I mean, like there was no way you could have seen that coming. But Phyllis and I, and our staff, we felt it. And
well, we also realized what I think some of you have pointed out, maybe a little bit more subtly than we are. You can tell we're really excited. We're excited to be here and to share these stories. We're an organization that has experienced some transformational growth, and we took the right kind of risk. It is risky. You have to know how to communicate what you're doing and build trust of individuals to be able to do this work. And it also, we also are activists, right? So we lean on the fact that we know that as a marginalized group of people, the impact of COVID would be, we're going to feel some of the most devastating consequences of it. So it was time for us to speak out, to let folks know not to forget us in all of your giving and your caring, to not forget us, and that applies to everyone. I think everyone is worthy of being, the recipient of philanthropy, and everyone is can give something. And so when you have a more inclusive perspective, then I think you have a greater opportunity. And so that's really what we're aiming for. And to say, we enjoy giving the folks the opportunity to give to the cause of the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland. And when you do that, we promise you that we are going to continue to serve all of us. We are the people we serve, is what we say.
Yes.
So we have a culture of philanthropy within our organization to, accept that $5 and support that person and lift that person up in thanks, as much as we do the 55 million, although we might in a better trinket.
It's so exciting, you guys. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I think two things. One, I keep having students in my workshops that I teach saying, do we keep asking? So I think this panel has definitely, I hope, given you multiple reasons why, yes, heck yes, create the possibility and innovate a little, right? We have to tell the story now with the COVID piece of it, or tell the story now with the social justice moment, or why this is important on a whole nother level. I think the other reason I thought that story was really special is because I've also had a lot of fundraisers who were like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't know if I'm gonna have a job. The career of what we do is at risk, as well as our organizations and our missions. And to see that you're staffing up and you're keeping staff and you're growing your staff is an exciting time, all of you, to see, but also specifically with the story of Phyllis and Eliana. I want to make sure that I'm sure we're getting tons of amazing questions, right, Elizabeth and Catalina?
Yes, plenty of questions starting to come in for sure.
So I want to make sure that we have some time for questions because a lot of great tips here. But before, can we quickly do a round robin and just talk about like how, okay, so great, successful, yay, positive news. We all needed that, but still, we still need to do some work. This isn't just, you're right, there was a heart, but you also did a lot of work to make sure that those campaigns got launched. What could be better, Valeda? What else do we need to do to ensure that next year's Giving USA numbers are consistent or still growing? What could be better? What are your thoughts for the future of individual giving?
Yeah, I think a key is staying connected to people and continue to cultivate your relationships. It may be a little tougher to do that with social distancing and in a virtual environment, but I definitely think it's possible, and I think it's key. I think some of the successes we are experiencing here in Charlotte with our work is we've organized several virtual events, bringing people together. One of our more successful ones was August 5th. We had a networking event, and we brought together Black-led nonprofit leaders or leaders of Black nonprofits and connected them to funders in our community. And we knew that funders had an extra interest in these times around connecting with more nonprofits. And so we had over 200 people in this virtual environment, and we're able to organize it to have a panel, but also to create breakout rooms, funder-hosted breakout rooms where our nonprofits could go and meet. It wasn't a pitch session. We made that clear, and no big checks were going to be awarded in that moment, but it was the start of making connections and reducing barriers to access that many of our nonprofits that serve marginalized communities experience. And it was really powerful. We got amazing feedback from our nonprofit leaders and then also our funders. And in terms of funders, we reached out to the whole gamut and brought together the corporate funders, the private foundations, the individual donors, collective giving groups, family foundations, the full spectrum as we could envision it and connect with to bear for this virtual event. And so that's one example, and I think something we all need to become more savvy and adept at in terms of staying connected even now.
Right.
And I would definitely agree. Thank you so much, because it really is about building those relationships. And for us, it has been about intentional messaging, segmentation, concise messaging at that, because everyone's getting a ton of emails and a lot of them are super long, but, concise messaging in a mix of updates and strategic calls to action. There's been a lot, like I said, we had a lot of news pieces that were done for us, touching videos, welcome emails, and personal touches. And, for us, it's really about, our vision. How are we going to continue to fill this gap? We want to bring more equity to our healthcare system. So how do we do that? We want coverage for everyone. We want uniform reimbursement levels. We want all folks to have access to quality care. And and we're always looking for other ways to innovate. And I think for us, it's just overall remembering to diversify our donor base. A lot of folks are like, oh, what do I do? Look in the places that you normally wouldn't think about. We can all do better in that area. I kind of cringe anytime someone tells me that people of color don't have the means to give. I remember back to my children's hospital days when we were doing radiothons, and we were working with a Spanish radio station, and people didn't expect any money to come in. And that weekend I had over $50,000 on my person. And, it was just a matter of not believing that people that seemingly may not have the means really did, because they understood what it was and gave their last. And so I think that, when we continue to think about the fact that donors look different, they don't just look one way, then, that will really, allow us to be more successful in our fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
Love it, Lisa. Kristen, you want to chime in?
Sure. I was going to say, we talked a little bit about having the donors decide. And I think that that's really important right now, because giving is an opportunity for donors. And I think as fundraisers, we know that, but a lot of times newer fundraisers, or if you're struggling in your fundraising, you may forget that. You may forget that you're actually offering this donor an opportunity and for them to feel something. And right now, when everyone's in this kind of hierarchy of needs stage of life, it's really important to remind them that they can have that self-actualization moment by giving to someone else, supporting someone else with what they have, and being able to be part of helping donors feel that during this time, because they do have such a piqued interest, I think is really key. And then one of the other members also talked about collaboration and working together. So I think if you are an organization who's struggling financially, one of the best things that you can do is align yourself with another organization and go in for Ask Together. So our organization has teamed up with 8 of the other climate change accelerators, because we know that Jeff Bezos has a pledge of $10 billion. And if we try to go for that 10 billion by ourselves, we may not have much of a chance. But if we go in, all 8 of us, now we've got a really compelling story and we've got a really compelling ask. So kind of putting aside those competitive natures that sometimes scarcity mentality gets us into, and starting to think about, who can I collaborate with? And not necessarily natural collaborators. Like, innovation happens when there's these strange Venn diagrams of programs that come together during these times. And so for us to all be thinking about, how can we all be working together? Because donors love to see that, and they love to see these big visions. So just keeping that in mind.
Those are great tips.
Ellie or Phyllis?
Too busy taking notes here, but I agree. I feel like it's exactly what I feel. I think people want to have the option to give. And when we first got together, our first introduction, we told our stories, and I told the story of my mom who received a stimulus check, and I was really excited for her, what are you gonna do with the money, whatever. And she was not comfortable accepting that without donating some of it, without giving some back. And so I was able to go online and help her to become a recurring donor, because I am the queen of recurring donations, a recurring donor for our local Cleveland Food Bank. And she is so proud of that, and she's so proud and happy that she's able to give, and she was able to give back when she received. And as an individual who doesn't have a lot of disposable income, by the time my paycheck gets to me, it's gone. I am one of these Americans that I'm not saying proudly, but I live paycheck to paycheck. It's not a secret. But even those of us who live paycheck to paycheck would think of ways to give. If I'm not on patios and having happy hours right now, and when I can, I want to be able to do that with a good conscience, but I also want to know that $35 that I've been given for 3 years, the ABC organization, is doing something too. And so what I'm trying to demonstrate is, don't count folks out. We want to give. We are, I think that's one thing that's great about us, maybe that we might have in common as human beings. We want to help each other. We want to feel good about our giving. We want to know that you care that we give, and that you do good things, that folks do good things with the money. But certainly I think it resonates with me about, we are serving the community when we help our community to serve those from our community. That's part of our service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that goes right into it, right? I mean, it's all about being who we serve. And I think things that could be better, it's because fortunately the world is talking finally about racial equity and social justice and things. As a lot of our organizations pivot to digital giving and virtual engagement, we have to acknowledge the impact of digital redlining and the fact that a lot of our communities have been kind of carved out and kind of excluded from being able to partake in a digital world. So what we're doing at the center, we're exploring ways that we can reverse the effects of digital redlining in our own communities. That's to help our community first and foremost, but that also does tie into donations, because yes, the people we help are the people who turn right around and help us once we need it. So I think moving toward technological equity, I think within all of our communities. I mean, this is something we all need to start talking about across the board. Is that's great. That's great if some people can get online and give and see our programs and stuff like that. But if that's not everybody, we're not there yet. So we're looking at that. And then internally, because we're a growing organization, we also have to look at the technology and how are we continually getting more sophisticated. So I mean, so we're looking at different platforms that might be good for us. Kind of similar to what Valida was talking about with platforms that can allow us to engage and do breakout sessions and all those things, right? We're looking at technology that can help us to better capture data so that we can take that information to our funders and our donors to show our outcomes. All of those things we're looking at. So I think it's really just getting started. The world has changed, and we all, we're fundraisers at heart. So I know we're all really looking forward to, getting back in person and doing the cocktail receptions and all the meet and greets in person. I love that stuff, but a lot of it's moving forward. A lot of it's going to be virtual. And how do we make sure that that's going to be for everybody?
Yep. I love that. Thank you all so much. It's a lot, and yet I think you're giving all of us hope that we have to continue moving forward. I think the only thing that I would add to this is, if you're not already a donor, we've heard some stories, be a donor yourself, right? As a fundraiser or a leader of a nonprofit, get involved more if you can, so that I know on our team, we're trying to go to other conferences and take other webinars so that we can see how others are doing it on the meta moment piece, right? And get inspired, that networking piece. but also I want to see and contribute with my dollars too. I'm really looking at how I'm spending my dollars these days and how far they're going to go, even if it's only a $10 reoccurring donation. So you really get a chance to understand, I think, what it's like to be an individual donor when you are one. And then you can go back to the drawing board and keep pivoting your process with your team when you've kind of put yourself in those shoes. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a double $250,000 major gift, Kristen. Elizabeth, let's ask some questions to this panel. What haven't we covered? I'm dying to know.
Absolutely. I'm going to do my very best to kind of summarize the questions that we have gotten into some themes here. Plenty have come in. We've been trying to provide resources as we can, but I'm going to start out with Jonathan's question here. And he wants to know if our panel can share any best practices around dealing with donor fatigue at this time. Because of the need and generosity of donors throughout the COVID crisis and many of the other topics that are happening, such as racial equity and many others, many donors that Jonathan has connected with are now feeling oversaturated with asks. Krista,
Yeah.
who wants to jump in?
Anyone on the panel? I'm not going to ask everyone to respond, but Lisa, you want to take a stab? Okay.
Yeah, and I just, just because this is, obviously we want to be considerate of that, but one of the main things that have come up for me is that, we can't always, because of the donor fatigue, we're trying to, what we're trying to do is update everyone on what is happening on the hospital. So whenever I reach out, I look at more as a personal touch. I'm, hey, how are you doing? Sending a little update here and there. I also reach out and ask them for advice. If there's something that we're dealing with, like right now, we're in the middle of a leadership study, so asking them for advice. Also introducing them to either other donors or other people that they can connect with and build relationships with. I think right now it's really about me being a resource for them, so that when the timing is right, that we won't be, we'll be at top of mind. And so those are the simple things that I've been doing currently, and they've really been working out. And it's authentic. It's not something that's like, oh, this is a part of a strategy. It's just this is how things have organically rolled out. So those two things have been very helpful for me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. I will just add a quick point that unless you know the donor is fatigued, don't assume that the donor is fatigued. All right, we've talked a lot about giving the donor options and letting them choose. So you might be fatigued because you've been working your butt off, but the donor might be looking for new opportunities. So get to know the folks that you're talking to so that you know if they are fatigued, how to tailor your approach. What else, Elizabeth?
Many folks here are asking about how to actually do the ask. Eliana, you were talking about actually networking and doing the people-to-people thing, but can you speak to how you're doing asks now? Are they on Zoom? Are they on the phone? Are they emails? How are you getting that ask out there?
Well, we have a lot of different ways. I mean, so because every donor is different and every donor responds differently, so it gets into the whole segmentation thing. So we send out direct mail. That resonates with some donors, right? But not everybody. So we also have a lot of social media stuff that we do. We have a lot of people who raise money for us on social media. We're very fortunate for that. But that's because of the good work that we do and communicating that out. I think that maybe is the most important thing. I think that, just use every method you can to get it out there. Like whether it be email, whether it be direct mail, whether it be a phone call, whether it be a Zoom. The game hasn't changed too much other than we're doing these things virtually. So I mean, if it's a higher level ask, yeah, that's probably going to be a Zoom meeting or a team meeting, right? If it's a smaller gift, it's maybe something that you can click donate now, right? I'm always a big proponent of kind of the long game in fundraising and not necessarily even having to ask. I think Lisa really kind of touched on that earlier with the whole notion of getting like advice, right? So it's like the whole axiom of ask money, get advice, get money twice. So, what we're doing is we have our engagement coordinator is just launched like a coffee and networking thing for our volunteers, right? So now that's an opportunity to go to your donor base and say like, hey, we've created this new program for volunteers. You can engage virtually. You can get to know the other volunteers, and then you can get out there and help the community. Ask your donors to get involved. You may not, you know, if you have a donor who has the capacity to make a gift right now, and they get involved and they start helping and they're seeing the good work, you probably won't even have to ask them to give. They're going to know it and they're going to do that for you. So, I mean, so I think really strong donor engagement and just like really communicating the message of the work, you know, through any means that you can, whether it be electronic or just old school ways. But I think if you do those things, you'll connect.
Nailed it.
I sent a couple messages, and I said, you know, I'm having a lot of smoothies with individual donors where I'm just telling them how we're doing, and
Yep.
it's really it was checking in to be transparent about what we were doing to ensure that we were sustainable. That it is not easy. We are very happy to, you know, again, to be presenting and to be able to do well, but I don't want to also paint the picture that this isn't hard work. And there wasn't a lot of hard work that led up to a place where we could breathe just a little, and we're still breathing, but you know, it's fast paced. And it's I feel like that it's higher touch than I've had before, because I, you know, had been checking in with individuals that I thought of, you know, who had given, you know, just to see how they were doing. That trend has transitioned to, I have a spot over in my neighborhood when I'm working from home that, you know, that I get to introduce this, you know, this organization, you know, that this Black-owned business in my neighborhood, you know, because it's a cool spot. But I've been meeting with some of our long-term donors who might not be who we initially think of when we're thinking about you know, major gifts, and it's really worked out, because what I'm going in with is, here's what we're going to do throughout the end of this year. There's, you know, so much that is unknown, but here's what we're hoping for next year. And in that moment, they're thinking about us this year. And so that's what you're, you know. Yes.
I'm sorry to stop you, but I want to make sure, Elizabeth, that we show Valeta's resources before we're done.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to cut you off there. Yes, that they're always top of mind. Elizabeth, can we show the Soul of Philanthropy resources before we have to leave? There we go. I think you were, when you said that, Phyllis, I was like, spot on. It's Black Philanthropy Month. It's not over yet, right, Valeta? We still have tons of opportunities. If there's one kind of call to action, I would say out of this is get involved and encourage your donors to get involved as well. Donors give to a lot of different causes.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, exactly. Elizabeth, how are we doing? Did we finish on time?
We're about a minute over here, but I think the call to action here is that there's plenty of resources out there. Candid has many, many trainings. Some of them will be included in the follow-up email, and they are in this slide deck as well. You can join Krista on a virtual workshop coming up. And we are talking about how to staff your fundraising department, actually. You know, that's how we're going to make it through 2020 and 2021, is really by leaning into our fundraisers here. So a call to action here to our nonprofits to staff up their fundraising departments, how to do that inclusively. So we'll be having some of those conversations upcoming. With that, we do want to say thank you to all of our panelists here. Thank you for sharing your stories, for providing some hope to our audience, for giving some guidance on how to do this, and, you know, sharing where you're struggling and what can be better. That's really what we were aiming to do today. Any final words, Krista?
I think let's not stop the conversation. We need each other. Let's stay connected on LinkedIn, continue to network with your colleagues, and continue to ask these questions of each other so that we can move forward and have a successful year end and future for our missions.